They say history is shaped by leaders. Well, not always. Sometimes, lifeless commodities can shape history, like opium in the 19th century and oil in the 20th century. That trend is continuing in our times too. The same old oil is still calling the shots. We saw an example of that today. The OPEC plus nations held a crucial meeting to discuss oil production. Their initial plan was clear: increase oil production gradually by around 432,000 barrels per day. But that was before Russia's war in Ukraine. Now the equation has changed because A, Russia's production capacity is down, their output is expected to fall 17% in 2022, and B, Russian oil has few takers. More than half of Russia's exports went to Europe. By the end of 2022, that tap will shut. So Russia became a liability for the OPEC. And in the cutthroat world of big oil, there is no place for liabilities. So what did the OPEC do? They increased output anyway. The new proposal is this: oil output will be increased by 648,000 barrels per day. That's a 50% hike from the initial rate. But here's the problem. Russia's capacity has maxed out, which means the Gulf states will have to do the heavy lifting. Right now, Saudi Arabia is pumping 10.5 million barrels per day. 11 million, it will be a stretch for them. They're not used to that kind of output over a long period. So capacity could be an issue, not just for Saudi Arabia, but for most oil producers. OPEC has a spare capacity of 2 million barrels. Will that be enough to make up for Russia, to make up for the oil that the world will stop buying from Russia? The markets are cautiously optimistic. Brent crude dropped 2.4% on Thursday. It is trading at around $113 per barrel. Remember, on Wednesday, it was $117 per barrel, so a $4 drop is definitely good news. But why has Saudi Arabia relented? Just a few weeks back, they had refused to increase output, come what may. So why are they backtracking now? Perhaps because the United States is offering them some concessions. Reports say President Joe Biden is planning a trip to Saudi Arabia, which means he could come face to face with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, why is this important? Because there is some bad history between the two. In 2019, Biden promised to make Riyadh a pariah. He released documents implicating MBS in the Khashoggi murder. Biden's entire policy was about snubbing Mohammed bin Salman. Listen to this remark by the former White House press secretary in February last year.
There was also, just to go back to the context of it, whether he would be speaking with MBS. And part of that is going back to engagement counterpart to counterpart. The president's counterpart is King Salman. And I expect at an appropriate time, he would have a conversation with him. I don't have a prediction of the timeline on that.
Now, how the tables turn, in fact, today Biden is completely dependent on Saudi Arabia. Gasoline rates are touching new highs in the US, while Biden's approval rating is hitting new lows. So the president has swallowed his pride and reached out to Riyadh. I guess it's true. Politicians campaign in poetry, but they govern in prose. This U-turn by Joe Biden was made possible by oil. Tells you how powerful this commodity is. It can trigger wars, it can create alliances, it can also reverse decades of strategic policy. I'm talking about Pakistan. They have never purchased oil from Russia. They were scared of antagonizing their American partners, but now Islamabad is rethinking. The finance minister says Pakistan could buy discounted Russian oil, just one condition: the purchase must not trigger Western sanctions. It's a massive policy shift for Pakistan. They spent the Cold War allied with Washington. They fought the Soviets in Afghanistan, and now they're open to import from Russia. That is the power of oil. Venezuela too is feeding off that power. They were buried under sanctions by the United States, but now that same US is considering lifting sanctions. Why? Because they need Venezuelan oil. These power plays over energy are nothing new. Humans have spent decades fighting over oil. This is merely another chapter of the same story. If the oil politics of the 20th century shaped our world order, the oil politics of 2022 could reshape it, maybe create new alliances, reunite old partners, or dismantle old relationships. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.